of all the circumstances of this case, its unique posture, and the defendant's status as president-elect, the people recommend a sentence of an unconditional discharge.
And just 10 days before his inauguration, you just heard Trump is sentenced to an unconditional discharge in his New York criminal trial. He will avoid prison, fines, and probation, but Judge Juan Merchan has labeled him a convicted felon. Of course, America doesn't really care and sees through the lawfare, and Trump was virtually in court today, and he was able to speak freely, free from a gag order. Listen.
This is a case that should have never been brought. It's an injustice of justice.
Senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano is standing by with us for a breakdown. The other major story, of course, we're following are the active wildfires. 5 of them still raging across LA County, little containment. And now, sadly, 10 people are confirmed dead. Thousands of homes have been destroyed.
We found out through word of mouth yesterday, confirmed from our neighbors that hiked in, that our house was gone.
And now one man is under arrest for arson, accused of setting one of the blazes. The region is under a curfew as there have been reports of looting. The National Guard has been deployed. We're live in Los Angeles over the next 2 hours with the very latest on what you need to know. Today's news and newsmakers, it all starts right now. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bianca De La Garza. Great to have you with us on Newsline today, just after noon here on the East Coast. And we listened as Judge Juan Merchan gave incoming President Donald Trump a no-penalty sentence in the New York criminal case. But he does call him a convicted felon. Let's begin with our live coverage at the courthouse, where we find Newsmax correspondent Christina Thompson standing by. Christina, Trump was able to speak free from the gag order, and he did just that as he appeared virtually today.
Yes, finally free of that gag order. This is an historic day, not only here in New York, but for all of America. Donald Trump sentenced to unconditional discharge by Judge Juan Merchan. Effectively, this is a blemish on his record. He will not face prison time, nor will he face any fines or probation. Donald Trump saying this is a sad, sad day in that courtroom as Judge Merchan gave his reasoning for why he chose this sentence.
After careful analysis and obedience to governing mandates, and pursuant to the rule of law, this court has determined that the only lawful sentence that permits entry of a judgment of conviction without encroaching upon the highest office in the land is an unconditional discharge.
Judge Juan Merchan saying he felt it important for Trump to hear the reasoning behind this sentencing, saying, quote, it was out of respect for the office of the presidency, not necessarily the person holding that office. Here's Alvin Bragg on the case.
We believe that the sanctity of the jury verdict must be given primacy, must be upheld as part of the rule of law, but we're also mindful of and respect the institution of the presidency. And so this is where we are. We saw what Justice Merchan wrote in his opinion, and we're mindful of that. And that's where we are on the calendar with 2 very important principles: the sanctity of a jury verdict and the office of the presidency.
Trump had faced up to 4 years in prison after his conviction on 34 felony counts for falsifying business records to allegedly, quote unquote, cover up a hush money payment ahead of the 2016 election. Trump saying the people watched this trial and they voted accordingly, and that Americans never wanted it to be brought in the first place. Now, he had tried to delay this sentencing, sending it up to the Supreme Court, those justices narrowly ruling just last night that it should proceed as scheduled. Trump saying that this was a fair decision and he respects it, though he is still planning to appeal this entire case now that sentencing is complete. He did maintain his innocence in that courtroom while he spoke to the judge. Now, earlier today, there were supporters out here, a large crowd of them holding Trump flags, holding a very massive Trump flag that took about a dozen people to hold up outside this courtroom, protesting the fact that the incoming president had to be sentenced today. Bianca?
All right, Christina Thompson, thanks for that live update. Let's bring in now Judge Andrew Napolitano to weigh in on what we just watched today. History unfolding. Judge, good to see you.
Well, likewise, Bianca.
You know, I don't know how Bragg can sit there and talk about a sanctity of a jury when it's a case that really was just a misdemeanor with a statute that had run out. We know there's going to be an appeal now. This is far from over, and most likely it will be reversed because of reversible errors.
Well, there's no question but that Donald Trump has a substantial array of appellate issues before him, all of which are ripe for review now. The trial part of this is over. It is out of Justice Merchan's hand. His sentence was eminently fair, I thought, because he has to do something to end the case. It was he who suggested this to the prosecutors, and they went along with it. Really, what is he going to do? Trump is about to become president of the United States in 10 days. But as for the fairness of the trial, as for the constitutionality of the statute, as for the decisions Justice Merchan made during the trial, all of this now will be teed up in an argument before the Supreme Court of New York Appellate Division, in which Trump's lawyers, not the same lawyers who represented him in the case because they're about to be running the Justice Department, but his new team of lawyers will be arguing. Supreme Court last night, when it said the sentencing can go forward, anticipated and welcomed this appeal.
Well, and Todd Blanche will be number 2 at Trump's incoming DOJ, so there's another note here. But, you know, when Donald Trump spoke today, free from a gag order, finally, which many believe was unconstitutional, he talked about the fact that he put in legal expenses. This is what they were filed for. There was no cover-up. His witness, they stopped them from letting the FEC commissioner actually testify. And he says he was treated very fairly. What did you make of Donald Trump's statements today? Some say he was very measured and very extremely articulate in laying out the lawfare that he has now been titled a convicted felon for.
You know, when Bianca, when the judge asks the defendant if there's anything that he wants to say before the judge pronounces sentence, you usually let the defendant go on for as long as he wants. I remember asking that to a defendant once, and he went on for 2 hours. I thought Donald Trump would be a lot longer and more flamboyant than he was. He was measured, he was reasoning, he was reasonable, and he was understanding. I thought it was a most appropriate statement. Everything that happened today will be reviewed by a half dozen justices and judges in the next few years, and all of it was very measured and quite appropriate.
When we look towards the next administration and what has gone on with lawfare, there'll be this case. There's also the case where there was a little bit of movement. Judge Engoron, who was overseeing Trump's civil business case, replaced by a New York Supreme Court Justice, Judith McMahon. Is there any significance in this as well, and maybe a foreshadowing of more Trump wins here and more that the American people will see, whether it be collusion on the Bragg case or what went down in this fraud case with Engoron?
I wish I knew. Shortly before coming on air with you, I read about this, and apparently a computer indicated that Justice Engoron no longer had the case. And then another computer announcement said that he does have the case. So we have to do a little research to find out exactly what happened. That case is over. So it's almost irrelevant to whom it is assigned in the trial court because it's before the appellate court. The oral argument in the appellate court gave everyone watching it the unmistakable conclusion that it's either going to be thrown out or the number is going to be radically reduced. But quite frankly, Justice Engoron and no trial judge has anything to do with the case any longer.
So, honing on what we saw go down today, the label convicted felon is something that they felt they wanted after the time and the money they spent, not going after real criminals in New York, of course. But when this appeal goes forward, and ultimately many believe Donald Trump will be successful, that gets wiped from the books. Can you talk about that, Judge? I think that's an important aspect as we look to our incoming president, which has the mandate, won the popular and the electoral vote from the American people.
The state of New York has a court rule that a conviction is not final until the sentencing is completed. So this morning, when Donald Trump woke up, he was not a convicted felon. When he goes to bed tonight, and as of 2 hours ago, he is a convicted felon. because Justice Mershon signed the document indicating the case is over, the sentence is an unconditional discharge, meaning he's free to go with no conditions imposed on that. That is, however, merely a legal classification for his status. In the minds of the overwhelming majority of Americans, this is history. This is a footnote. They want the page turned, and Donald Trump is prepared to do that starting 10 days from today.
And many say that can't come soon enough. Isn't there some irony in our final moments here, Judge, that this is the man who will have the nuclear codes, who will be the leader of the free world, yet because of this may not be able to vote in a midterm election or potentially have a firearm? Isn't there something so wrong about this?
There is. Those are the sanctions. He lives in Florida. Those are the sanctions that follow him in Florida. The inability to carry a firearm. Of course, he doesn't need one personally. He has the Secret Service. But the inability to vote will probably grate on him. Something tells me the legislature of the state of Florida may decide to address that before the midterm elections.
Something tells me that as well. In our final moments here, we're going to take folks to Los Angeles. There's been an arrest, one fire for arson. A lot of folks there are wondering how they'll ever rebuild. We talked about it yesterday, but there's growing concern that there's leadership like Newsom and Bass that may be negligent. Could there be some major lawsuits happening, not just towards the leaders there in California, but what type of charge this alleged arsonist could get? Could it be a terror charge?
Well, yes, it could be a terror charge. It could also be life imprisonment because it caused death and because it caused such massive destruction and disruption of the normal behavior of so many people. In terms of suing the government, California has made it difficult to sue the government. You would have to show gross negligence. So is a decision not to open up a reservoir just the wrong decision? Is it negligent or is it grossly negligent? That's what a jury is going to have to decide. Most states have done the same. Most states have made it very difficult to sue the state. This is going to be a disaster unfolding because this is going to exhaust the resources of the insurance companies and what's known as reinsurance. Those are insurance companies that insure other insurance companies because the losses are so massive.
Yeah, about $135 billion is the latest estimate from one source. Judge Andrew Napolitano, such a pleasure to have you, sir, on such a historic day. I certainly appreciate your analysis, and I hope you come back and see us real soon here on Newsline.
Thank you, Bianca. Have a fine weekend.
Thank you. Now to California, where we told you there are 10 people confirmed dead and one person has been arrested for arson. There are reports also of people seeing looters. Let's get out to our correspondent, Natasha Sweet. She is live right now in the Pacific Palisades with new information for us this Friday afternoon. Good afternoon, Natasha.
Good afternoon, Bianca. Yes, as you mentioned, a homeless man was taken into custody in connection to the Kenneth fire in Los Angeles' West Hills, and residents were able to detain him. And now the Pacific Palisades, as you can see, there's just so much smoke and damage here. Tragically, at least 10 people have died in the Eaton fire near Pasadena, which has destroyed more than 5,000 structures since it started Tuesday night. Firefighters have established some containment, but as of early this morning, containment levels remained at zero. Here in Pacific Palisades, the largest fire burning in the area has spread to nearly 20,000 acres, threatening over 13,000 structures with only 6% containment. The Hearst fire is currently at 37% containment, while the Lydia fire is at 75% containment. Arson investigators have been deployed to determine the cause of the Pacific Palisades fire, but no arson reports have been confirmed. About 180,000 people have been evacuated, with another 200,000 under evacuation warnings. Firefighters reported challenges with equipment and water supplies amidst strong winds. The Kenneth fire began Thursday afternoon in San Fernando Valley near a school serving as a shelter for evacuees. The owner of the LA Times took to X, pointing out how Mayor Karen Bass cut $23 million out of the LA Fire Department's budget and how reports of empty fire hydrants are raising serious questions. Also on X, Michael Schallenberger pointing out how Governor Newsom hasn't built water reservoirs that Los Angeles needed and even cut the budget for water infrastructure projects last year. And others are criticizing city leaders here in the Golden State, saying that they were so worried about so-called Trump-proofing itself that they failed to really focus on taking care of the wildfires. Bianca?
Yeah, well, that's another angle here we'll be exploring. Natasha Sweet, appreciate that update live there from Pacific Palisades, one of course, the most devastated areas in the county. And coming up next on Newsline, a clip that's going viral is Sky News, which captured a moment as Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, is confronted by a desperate mother, a victim of the wildfires. And Newsom claimed that he was actually on the phone with President Biden while she walked up to him, but he wasn't. Take a look.
Governor, you got a second? Governor, I live here, Governor. That was my daughter's school, Governor. Please tell me what you're going to do. I'm not going to hurt him, I promise.
I'm literally talking to the president right now to specifically answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it.
I'm sorry. There's literally, I've tried 5 times. That's why I'm walking around to make the call.
Why is the president not taking your call?
Because it's not going through. So
Why?
I have to get cell service.
Incredible moment there. Let's bring in an LA-based attorney and host of the Barack Lurie Show. Barack Lurie, good to see you today.
Bianca, good to see you. It's such tragic circumstances.
I know. And I know that you are in California and are also dealing with this. So I just, our hearts are going out to everyone there. When you see Gavin Newsom and almost the acting, he's been caught flat-footed. So has Karen Bass. They kind of have had these really uncomfortable moments here. I mean, he's already under the microscope for his failed policies, but then to try to feign that he's on a phone call, there's even memes about him eating at a charred out Nobu, because we all remember what he did during COVID when he was at French Laundry.
Right.
The disconnect.
Right. The disconnect is extraordinary, and it's as if these people, Newsom included, but Karen Bass and the fire department head and everyone else, it's as if they thought that the whole fire department issue was just something that you kind of do, you put a little bit of money to, but it's not a real thing. It's not something that you actually have to prepare for. I mean, it makes me feel like they're the three amigos who, pretend to be, fighters against crime and such, but they're just actors. And this is the same way for these guys. They just pretend the role. And then when actual fire happens, they have no idea, no clue what to do. And now we're, of course, uncovering terrible things about the water supply and such.
Of course, there's a new report that Newsom cut $100 million from fire prevention budget. She cut 17.6, and even in December, not that long ago, one of the fire captains wrote a letter to Bass saying this is really hurting our efforts. So it's hard for them to come back now and say that they actually didn't do these things because there's so much documentation. But I guess at this point, the question is, what accountability? This is a one-party state. Folks like Kamala Harris have risen through the ranks with, no problem at all. And it looks like, again, this may be a case where they will not be held accountable. I do know Rick Caruso, who ran and lost against Karen Bass. There's a video of him in 2022, and he's a developer, and he has property in Pacific Palisades saying the water and the fire department are serious issues. So there were warnings from other folks, but the election just didn't go his way.
Yeah. Look, there will be accountability at the end of the day. There's no chance that there's not going to be a lawsuit against Karen Bass and the fire department and otherwise in Los Angeles, because this was gross negligence. I heard you speaking with Judge Napolitano, and he articulated that point of gross negligence. This is criminal negligence. When you actually take away the water or just simply don't, include the filling up the water for the fire hydrants and such, and knowing that this is a tinderbox that's ready to explode at any time, and you just don't bother with this, so you have to have that, ultimate doomsday scenario, and you just don't plan for it whatsoever. That's the essence of your job. You have one duty, and that's it. And then to take that away. So yes, she's going to be sued. The whole city will be sued for this, and there will be a compensation for the victims of this. I have no doubt about this. And a lot of lawyers will make money in the process, but so be it. there's got to be some sort of compensation program here.
Well, we know there's a curfew now. National Guard's on the ground as there are reports, sadly, of looting and possibly organized crime rings. You know, they say they were pulling up to neighborhoods and everyone's really on high alert, in addition, as if it wasn't bad enough to be evacuated. I would like to get your reaction to what played out. Virtually, Donald Trump was sentenced today, this unconditional discharge. And for the first time, we got to hear Donald Trump's thoughts on the case because there was no gag order. I want to play a little bit of his exchange, Barack, and get your reaction.
This has been a very terrible experience. I think it's been a tremendous setback for New York and the New York court system. This is a case that Alvin Bragg did not want to bring. He thought it was, from what I read and from what I hear, inappropriately handled before he got there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Bragg and these folks are in an alternate universe because they think this is the ultimate. But Americans, I mean, frankly, could care less. He's going to be president in 10 days. And a lot of people are saying it couldn't come soon enough.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I saw some tweets. It was a fantastic comment. You know, they're taking a jump shot 30 seconds after the buzzer has already buzzed and then declaring some sort of victory. I mean, it's a fantastic point. And look, all they really wanted out of this is to be able to say that he's a convicted felon. That's how cheap this whole circus has been. They just want to go through with it instead of actually dismissing the case. They want to be able to say that so that he can't vote and they can't carry a firearm. That is pathetic, and I think it's only going to backfire on the Democrats, generally speaking. It's just another nail in their coffin. The other question I had for you, Bianca, is it's so interesting that he still won by a landslide, and one only wonders what would have happened had none of these things actually been brought, all these cheap lawsuits against him, because some people voted against him because of the convictions. Yeah. So I think it worked in his favor, and he would have won by even more of a landslide, and Democrats should take note.
Okay. I have about 30 seconds, but people are actually very interested to hear about collusion. Matthew Colangelo at the DOJ was like number 2 or number 3, then goes, so happens to Bragg's case, a lowly, you know, now demotion for him, if you will. And there's also talk about what this incoming DOJ can do with the Fani Willis case as well, because it looks like they were meeting with White House officials too. Nathan Wade, who is also her boyfriend, getting paid out of the taxpayer money. Do you think the collusion will be revealed by the incoming administration? Because I think Americans deserve to know exactly what went down.
Well, it will definitely be revealed. I think Trump will want that to be revealed. He wants to show how he's been ramrodded and railroaded through this justice system and the lawfare program that was executed against him. He wants that. It's going to be revealed. Whether or not there's going to be jail time or something against Fani Willis and otherwise, that's another story. But he wants the information out to expose what they've done so that the Democrats won't think that they could do this again and again. So that's my take on that, but I'm very confident it will come out.
Well, we certainly hope so. A short-lived victory for them today. Hope they enjoy it. Barack Lurie, a pleasure to have you. Thanks for your legal insight today, and hope to see you back here soon on Newsline.
You bet. Thank you, Bianca.
Thank you, and stay safe out west. Still ahead, President Donald Trump avoided jail or fines, as we just told you, but his response was pretty thorough and complete, calling it a despicable charade. More on the lawfare against our... So the lawfare today playing out in Judge Juan Merchan's courtroom. The Democrats and their legacy media friends got what they wanted. They can call Donald Trump, our incoming president, a convicted felon. They can have the headline, but Trump, of course, has the ultimate say. He has the presidency. Pretty good trade-off in my mind. Trump says, though, he is not done fighting, and we know the appeals process most likely will be in his favor. Let's get more reaction to today's decision. We bring in Gordon Chang, author of several best-selling books. His latest one, The Coming Collapse of China and Plan Red, China's project to destroy America. He's with us today, and also joining Gordon, Brylan Hollyhand. He's the chairman of the RNC Youth Advisory Council and the author of the book, One Generation Away. Welcome into Newsline. We're also going to talk about TikTok because you both kind of disagree on where the future of that app goes. So welcome, but first to Donald Trump. You know, Gordon, on the world stage, we know Donald Trump commands a lot of respect. Yes, they can label him a convicted felon, but ultimately, many say this is just a blip in the history books and really a black eye for the Democrats and Alvin Bragg.
Well, certainly a black eye. And I agree that this is what helped get him elected, because the American people realized that this prosecution in particular was unfair. It was biased. It was part of a campaign to prevent President Trump from being elected. And I think it will be a blip because I agree with you. Clearly, this was a made-up charge. The statute of limitations in any event applied, and it will be overturned on appeal. So, yes, blip is a perfect word.
We were watching it all play out, and it was like one indictment after the other. And you can't even imagine the strength he had to go with it, Brylan. But, you know, young men are turning more conservative. And I have to say, dovetailing on what Gordon just said, the fact he had a mugshot, you know, some were even saying they identified more with him. So it was almost the more they go after him, they felt like he is one of us. He is not an elite above us. And he's taking this lawfare because ultimately he didn't have to do this. He could have stayed in the private sector. But for him to go through this, survive, you know, 2 assassination attempts, he was their man.
You're exactly right, Bill. It's a dark day in American history. I mean, this is something that should not have happened. There was no case from the beginning. I think one of the most powerful moments of today's hearing was when President Trump over Zoom said, listen, the American people saw clear what you did in this courtroom, and they still voted for me in a landslide. Every single swing state still voted for me. That was powerful. That was a powerful moment of rejection by the American people. The American people said, hey, we're rejecting this political persecution. And political persecution is exactly what this is. We spent Trump's first term saying that they were going after him, the deep state was going after him. This made it very clear to, like you said, young men and really everybody out there that Donald Trump is enemy number one of the weaponization of government. They went after him and they voted for him because of that.
Yeah, well, thank you for weighing in on today's historic virtual proceedings. We wanted to talk to you both about TikTok because there's a lot of debate on whether or not it should be banned. It's Chinese owned. Brylan, you are actually staying on as the youth counsel for Donald Trump. He joined TikTok during this election, and you are saying out of 3 things you want him to do, one of them is staying on TikTok. I'll let you explain that. But first, Gordon, I know you have been on the record saying, let's ban it because the risks are so great. And we saw what happened during the conflict initially, the way the algorithm was showing certain things with Israel, Gaza that really shaped consciousness. So tell us why you think TikTok needs to be banned in the United States.
Yeah, TikTok needs to be banned or sold to a non-Chinese party. And there are 2 reasons. First of all, China has been using the app to illegally take the data of Americans. And certainly they're going to use it for malign purposes. But also, as you point out, TikTok has been used to propagate Chinese narratives, and they use the curation algorithm to do that. So, for instance, right after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, we saw Russian disinformation on TikTok. And during Iran's attack on Israel, 96.5% of the videos on Hamas on the platform supported the terrorist group. That's not an accident. We have seen other instances of use of TikTok. The Chinese military has used it to promote violence in the United States. So this case is not about the First Amendment. It's about conduct. They're not going after the content on the app. They're going after China's conduct. And if we can't ban this or take it away from China, then we're not going to be able to defend our country from a malicious and malign attack from the Chinese regime.
Today, the Supreme Court will hear arguments on whether to overturn or delay a law that could lead to a ban. Brylan, how would you like to see this play out, knowing also that Donald Trump has used TikTok, and it did get him a little bit of interest there as well? I forget how many joined his account in the first 24 hours, but it was pretty epic.
Yeah, millions and millions. You know, during the campaign, we used TikTok as a weapon to call out Kamala Harris's lies and as a tool to engage with Gen Z. Bianca, you know, I met with the president 4 times over the course of the campaign and encouraged him to get on the platform. You know, Trump won this election because he listened to first-time voters like myself and joined TikTok to get his message to us directly. He didn't need these paid influencers or cringy trends like his failed opponent. All he had to do was go where Gen Z was, TikTok.
But you agree that Chinese ownership is a problem?
Absolutely. Yes, I've been a vocal critic of allowing TikTok to be CCP owned. At the end of the day, it would be a big win for the country if this app is bought by an American company. That's the position I stand. That's what President Trump stands. We hope to have, you know, this be a free speech platform that America can own. That this is a big image for America on the global stage, can help the American economy. This would be great at the end of the day if it could be bought by an American company.
And it may just be that. I know Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank has floated that idea, so we'll see. Where there's a deal to
And
be
he met with President
made,
Trump.
you know, capitalism reigns. All right, guys, great conversation and wonderful to see you both. Gordon Chang, Brylan Hollyhan, thank you.
Thank you, Bianca.
Thanks,
Have a
guys.
good weekend.
You too. Coming up next on Newsline, out of touch. California wildfires burning out of control, yet lawmakers start a special session on, get this, preparing to take on President-elect Trump. You just can't make this stuff up. We'll talk about that and much more next. A live look in Los Angeles as the fires get control, and look at how many have now cropped up. The Kenneth Fire, which you see north of the Palisades, that's impacting 960 acres near Calabasas. Real frightening scene yesterday as it broke out. And Los Angeles police responded to Woodland Hills. A 911 caller said a man was attempting to light the fire, and residents actually held him down. There's now been one person, again, suspected of arson who is under arrest. Very concerning here, and obviously a big concern, too, is the looting. People have been arrested for looting. The incoming district attorney, Nate Hochman, has said that they will be prosecuted. So now a lot of criminal intent here, potentially to be investigated in these deadly wildfires that have now sadly taken the lives of 10 people in Southern California. Now let's bring in Assemblyman for California's 63rd District, Bill Asili. Thank you so much for being with us. It's good to have you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
You are in the Riverside County, and Tyler is affected by the fires. You're inland, and in fact, where Biden had come, he had a pre-scheduled visit out there, which was interesting to note. Where do you stand right now with where your county is and how your constituents are amid all this? And I'm sure that some of your fire officials have now gone west to help battle these flames.
Yeah, my county, Riverside County, we've been fortunate in that we haven't had the devastating fires like LA counties had. We've been able to contain them and put them out. But we are severely affected. We're affected by the smoke, the air quality, and what they do in California is they cut the power. Anytime the winds pick up, the people's power get cut off as a precautionary measure because the utility companies don't want the liability for starting a fire. So yeah, even though we're not LA County, we are still severely impacted with power outages and other health-related matters. But we are sending personnel. We have lots of firefighters out in LA County to try to assist and provide mutual aid.
So, in the stories of heroism and neighbors helping neighbors, truly remarkable as LA comes together, and will need to in the many months ahead as rebuilding may be impossible for some folks and they are displaced, and the concern about where children will go to school. But amid all of this, there's a lot of concern about where the focus is. There is California Assemblyman Robert Rivas, who was pressed yesterday because they were preparing a special session to talk about incoming President Donald Trump. Here's this exchange.
While this wildfire is happening, and while people are trying to understand what's going on and are worried about disaster relief, worried about the ability to get homeowners insurance, your chamber gavelled into a special legislative session to prepare for Donald Trump in a way that you are already able to do without a special legislative session. So again, is now the right time for that?
So certainly our focus right now is Speaker Ashley. At this moment, my colleagues and I, we are acting with great urgency to ensure that we're providing much needed relief to Angelenos.
These people going to get voted out because of their disastrous response to the disaster?
They should be thrown out, not just voted out. I was there when they gavelled into the special session, and we didn't know they were going to do that yesterday. We were shocked. I just sent a letter the day before to the governor saying we don't need to Trump-proof the state of California. We need to fire-proof our state. The fact that they're going to spend money, millions of dollars in resources and time of the legislature to go after President Trump when we should be helping these fire victims and reinforcing our communities from more fire events, it's unconscionable. These people need to be thrown out of office, from the mayor to the governor to the supermajority Democrats in the legislature.
You know, I think a lot of folks do agree, even if for before they were supporting the liberal policies. And what's your take on all of the comments Donald Trump has made in the past? Just 4 months ago, he was in Rancho Palos Verdes talking about the water that's in Northern California. On Joe Rogan's podcast, he spent several minutes during the election, I mean, not knowing that this tragedy would be unfolding, but talking about California and the policies that have really hampered not just when it comes to stopping fires, but, you know, maintaining the forest and access to water. Everyone's saying Donald Trump has been warning about this for years.
President Trump is right. I mean, he's got common sense. He can take a look at our state, and it's not a mystery to know what's going to happen when you have droughts. You're not storing water. You're not clearing the brush. You're not clearing the dead trees. It is just a tinderbox waiting to explode. And all their solution is, when we have one of these events, oh, let's declare an emergency and get federal funds. That's not a solution. That's not what people want. We want to prevent these fires from happening in the first place.
Well, and Governor Newsom also with the photo op there wants to walk around as if he's doing some things as well. He's getting confronted this time around. Assemblyman Bill Asaley, appreciate your time today and for describing what went down when they gavelled in for that special session that you were unaware of. Please join us again here on Newsline. A pleasure.
Thank you for covering this.
You bet. It is a tragedy. We'll continue to cover more of new information coming in on California. Of course, now there's concerns about more looting. 10 people confirmed dead. And as you saw from that live picture, the fire remains 0% uncontained.